guys, what's going on? This is Calado, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the very beginning steps about playing the instrument called the berimbau. The berimbau is an instrument that originates in Brazil but has roots in Western Africa. There are many instruments that are very similar to the berimbau that you can find in different parts of Africa, different parts of the Middle East and Asia. And so the berimbau is just one of those instruments that made its way over here. One thing that you'll notice when starting with the berimbau is that it looks really strange. It has a lot of different parts to it. There's the cabaça, the caxixi, baqueta, etc. And all these different parts come together to create the berimbau. Now, one of the more complicated things about this instrument is that unlike a guitar or a piano where you can just sit down and play it, the berimbau is something that you have to string. So you have to string the instrument before you can actually play it. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But first I want to get into how you actually go about doing this, and then I'll kind of explain a little bit about why we do certain things with the berimbau. And then at the end I'll touch on the 3 different notes that are used in the berimbau to create the music that it can produce. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have all the parts of the berimbau available to you. Again, the 7 parts of the berimbau are the baqueta, the cabaça, the caxixi, the dobrão, the verga, the arame, and if you want to count it as well, the chapéu de couro. Now all these things, if you have a fully equipped berimbau, should be available to you. If not, you can check out where to buy one in the description above or below, and that'll be a link to where you can buy a really good quality berimbau by a friend of mine in Texas. His name is Contramestre Pena, and he's done a really great job of creating an online store. You can get really great quality berimbaus as well as other instruments as well that pertain to the game of capoeira. Now let's get started with actually stringing the instrument. So the very first thing that you want to do is take off the cabaça. You want to make sure that it doesn't get in the way while you're stringing the instrument. So take that piece off, put it off to the side, you're going to need it later. The next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that the string that's attached to the wire and the piece of wood, the verga, is untied. So untie that quickly, and then once you get there, you'll be ready to actually bend and string the berimbau. So this is where the tricky part begins, because bending the berimbau can be a very difficult process for some people. If you are a little bit weaker, then this could be very hard for you, but if you're very strong, then you need to be a little bit more delicate. And this is where a lot of people kind of go wrong and have a lot of difficulty. So knowing exactly how much to bend your berimbau is actually a really important thing to understand. So the way we bend our berimbau, the way we string it, is that we hold the top part of the verga with the one hand, usually your less dominant hand, and then you'll place your knee somewhere in the middle of the berimbau. And that'll usually also be with the same side leg that you're holding the verga with. So if I'm holding the verga with my left hand, then I'll have my left knee in the middle of the verga, and that knee will be the fulcrum for me to begin my pulling motion. What I'm going to do now that I have the berimbau in position is to pull with the hand that's on the verga. The other hand that's free is going to be holding the arame, and that is going to hang in tight while we start bending the berimbau. So you pull the berimbau towards you, and as you do this, you want to make sure not to destroy the berimbau. That has happened many times to many people. So you just want to bend it enough that you are going to get the sound quality that you want or need. And again, like I said, this is kind of a delicate process, so it might take you a few times to really get this. Once you have the berimbau bent to where you want it, you take the free hand that is holding the wire and you place it over the chapéu de couro. The chapéu de couro protects the wood from the wire. It doesn't allow the wire to dig into the wood and cut it and break it. So it's a very important piece. You want to place, as you're bending the berimbau, so imagine you're kind of doing a little bit of a balancing act here. While you still have the berimbau bent, you want to place the wire on top of it, and then with your thumb you want to hold it in place. The next thing that you want to do is you want to wrap the rest of the wire and the string around the verga a couple times. Make sure that you have enough left over so that you can begin tying the wire in a bit of a knot. As you tie the wire and the string around the verga, you want to slide your hand down the arame. And what you want to make sure to do is keep the tension that is in the verga, that is, keep the tension that is in the string and in the wood. So the wood has to stay in this bent position. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to string my berimbau, and because I'm not holding on tight enough, the whole thing just unravels itself. The wood unbends itself, and then I have to start all over from the start. Now, if this is something that is hard for you, then you really might start feeling some muscle fatigue. It can depend a bit on the berimbau that you have. Some berimbaus are thicker than others, some are just less pliable than others. It also depends on the size and thickness of the wood. So hopefully the berimbau that you have is something that you can manage. Once you have the wire and the string securely tightened around the verga, what you want to do is loop around the string and then loop it inside of itself and pull tightly. When you pull tightly, this is going to be the first knot that you create. Hopefully you have enough string to loop it around one more time, insert the string again into itself, and tie it again. And this is going to be the motion that you need to fasten the knot. Okay, this is going to preserve the tension in the wood, and so when you let go with your hand that has been holding the verga this whole time, you should see that the berimbau is still bent. It's still bent, it's still holding tension, and even though we're not completely done, this is the 90% of the job. Now that you're here, you want to flip the berimbau over and you want to put on the cabasa again. So wherever you put the cabasa, go grab it, and then you want to put it onto the bottom part of the berimbau, the part that doesn't have the leather side. Okay, so you put on the berimbau and you want to get about 6-7 inches of distance between the bottom of the berimbau and the cabasa. Now this will vary a lot depending on the berimbau that you have. For some berimbaus you might need a lot less space. For some other berimbaus you might need a lot more space. It kind of depends on the sound quality that you're trying to achieve, and also how you're trying to tune it with maybe other berimbaus that you're going to be playing with. If you're playing by yourself, this isn't something you need to worry about. You might just worry about the actual sound quality of the instrument. Another thing that you want to watch out for when stringing the berimbau is to make sure that you're not stringing it too much. And a general rule of thumb that you can use is that at the middle point of the berimbau, where the bend is the greatest, you want to make sure that the distance between the string and the wood is no more than, let's say, 4 or 5 fingers. So you want to make sure that you have about a palm's worth of distance between the wire and the wood, and not too much more than that. And the reason that we do this is just to preserve the integrity of the wood. If you bend it too much, then it's going to start taking on that shape, and then you'll need to bend it more and more each time to get the same sound quality. So in order to avoid this, we kind of bend the wood as minimally as possible and try to achieve the sound quality that we want that way. So after you've done that, you're done. You're done stringing the berimbau. You've strung it, and now you're ready to play it. So what you want to do now is hold the baqueta, which is what you're going to be using to actually play the berimbau, and the caxixe. The caxixe is a simple shaker. You place this between your 2 middle fingers, boom, palm it, and then at the same time you're going to be holding the baqueta. The baqueta, you hold it more or less like you would a pencil. Hopefully you don't hold your pencil like a caveman. That's going to be a little bit difficult, but if you hold a pencil like you would normally, like how they teach you in school, then that's essentially how you would hold the baqueta. Lastly is the dobrão. The dobrão is a doubloon. It's also a rock in some cases. It kind of depends. It doesn't really matter what it is. Usually a smooth rock. That's my personal preference, but I just have this dobrão as an example. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold this in the same hand that you're holding the berimbau, and this is going to help change the pitch of the berimbau. So in the berimbau you have 3 notes. The dobrão is the thing that determines what note you're playing. So if you don't use the dobrão to play, then that's called the solta note. It's the open note. If you hold the dobrão hard against the wire, that's called preso, the closed note. And if you hold the dobrão very gently against the wire, that's called arranhado, or it's the scratchy note. Those are the 3 notes of the berimbau, and you can find all those notes used in various capoeira rhythms. If you're not playing the berimbau for capoeira, then again, it's not really going to change very much. Those are the 3 notes that you would use, and there is some variation to how you can play these notes. You can play it with the cabasa or the gourd against the stomach, away from the stomach. You can also play it in many other different ways. There's tons of little nuances and changes that you can use to change the sound quality of the berimbau, and it's very interesting how a lot of people will do this. So try it out. Let me know if you have any questions, if something's unclear. And if you guys enjoy this video, and if it's something that's interesting to you, check down to the link below. There's a link to my blog where you can see a more in-depth discussion about how the berimbau is actually put together and a little bit more about the notes, how it's played, etc. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it, and I'll catch you guys next time.